Principles. From Ordinary Boys to Investment Titans, a guide to wisdom and decision-making. Introduction. The extraordinary choices of an ordinary boy. Pictured a summer afternoon on Long Island, New York, sunlight spilling across a golf course, the air rich with the scent of fresh grass. A 12-year-old boy bends to pick up a stray ball, his shirt slightly tattered, hands smudged with dirt, but his eyes sparkling with curiosity. His name is Ray Dalio, and one day, he'll rise from this fairway to the pinnacle of global finance, founding Bridgewater Associates and managing hundreds of billions in assets. His weapon isn't genius or luck, it's principles, a set of hard-earned insights forged from countless stumbles and tested through action. The book Principles isn't a lofty academic tome, it's Dalio's raw account of climbing back from failure, answering a question we all face: how do we find our way in a world full of uncertainty? Dalio's beginnings were as ordinary as any kid on the block. Born in 1949 to an Italian-American middle-class family, his father was a jazz saxophonist, playing smoky bars late into the night, while his mother, a kind homemaker, sometimes mended neighbors' clothes. Young Dalio wasn't the teacher's pet. His grades were average, and he had a rebellious streak. He wrote memorization at school, preferring to chase adventures, kick a ball with friends, or eavesdrop on grown-ups' conversations. Back then, his biggest business was caddying at a golf course. Every weekend, he'd sling a bag taller than himself across the fairways, earning a few bucks in tips. One day, he overheard some sharp-dressed tycoons talking about stocks, raving about a cheap company called Northeast Airlines. He didn't know what a stock was, but on a whim, he saved up a few dollars and bought a handful of shares at a brokerage. Soon after, the company went bust but was acquired, and to his shock, he tripled his money. Standing at the counter, clutching crumpled bills, he realized for the first time, money can make money, and the world is bigger than he ever imagined. But success is never a straight line. In 1971, fresh out of college, Dalio landed a job at a brokerage firm, brimming with ambition. Young and cocky, he thought he could conquer anything. During a company boxing match, he won his bout but, caught up in the thrill, splashed a drink in his boss's face. The next day, he was fired, forced to pack his bags and slink away. A few years later, he mustered the courage to start Bridgewater Associates, determined to make his mark in finance. But in 1982, he hit rock bottom. He boldly predicted a U.S. economic collapse due to a debt crisis, expecting the stock market to tank. Instead, the economy rebounded, stocks soared, and Bridgewater nearly went under. That day, he sat in his empty office, staring at a ledger bleeding red, unable to pay rent. He shuffled home, avoiding his wife's gaze, and had to swallow his pride to borrow $4,000 from his father. In that moment, he felt he'd lost everything, even his dignity. Yet that low point transformed Dalio. Instead of giving up, he grabbed a pen and started reflecting. Why did I fail? How can I avoid this again? The answer was principles. He began documenting every decision's wins and losses, analyzing successes and failures like a scientist running experiments, gradually building a system for navigating life. This book is the distillation of those decades of hard knocks, a gift to anyone who wants to live with greater clarity. Join us as we dive into Dalio's world, exploring his life principles, working principles, economic insights, and practical tools. Ready? Let's embark on this journey. Chapter 1: Life Principles Born from Failure. Principles is divided into life principles and work principles. Life principles are the foundation Dalio built from his lowest moments, the key to understanding his working principles. He once said, "Pain plus reflection equals progress." That single line captures his core belief: failure isn't the enemy, ignoring it is. Failure is your best teacher. In the 1970s, Dalio was a brash young man, confident to the point of arrogance. He thought he could outsmart the markets and rake in millions. In 1982, he stood before TV cameras, proclaiming with certainty that a debt crisis would crush the US economy and tank the stock market. He even bet Bridgewater's entire portfolio on it. It was an autumn afternoon, and he sat in his office, eyes glued to the market charts, expecting vindications. But the market slapped him down hard. The economy didn't crash. It surged, with the S&P index galloping upward like a wild stallion. His clients pulled their money, his team scattered, and his office became a ghost town, piled high with unpaid bills. At night, he trudged home, unable to meet his wife's eyes, feeling like an utter failure. To cover rent, he called his father, mumbling, "Dad, I need $4,000. The line went quiet for a moment before his father softly replied, "No problem, son." In that instant, Dalio's eyes welled up, his pride in tatters. But he didn't wallow. He sat at his desk, opened a notebook, and started dissecting his mistakes. He asked himself, where did I go wrong? Was I too sure of myself? He realized his errors laid in overconfidence and narrow thinking. He'd fixated on the debt crisis but ignored the government's ability to intervene and the market's complexity. That sleepless night, he filled page after page with notes. He wrote, October 1982, I missed the Fed's rate-cutting signals, leading to my misprediction. From that day, he swore off gut-driven decisions, vowing to build a systematic approach. He started logging every decision's rationale and outcome, treating mistakes like entries in a diary. Those notes evolved into his principles. What does this mean for you? We all stumble in life, flunking a test, botching a project, or being misunderstood. Dalio's advice: don't rush to blame others or hide. Pause and ask 3 questions. What happened? Why did it happen? What can I learn? Say you missed a homework deadline because you were scrolling on your phone too long and didn't plan. Try a fix. Set a daily goal, like writing 200 words. A friend of mine used this trick after missing a promotion due to procrastination. He started waking up 30 minutes early to plan his day, and within 6 months, he was a team leader. Failure isn't the end, it's a chance to grow. As long as you reflect, every fall can lift you higher. Radical truth, the first step to clarity. The 1982 debacle taught Dalio another lesson: truth matters more than ego. He calls it radical truth. He says, truth is often messier and harsher than we expect, but facing it is the only way forward. After going bust, he saw his predictions were just guesses. The market's feedback was the real judge. So, he began seeking out opposing views, even urging his team to challenge him. Once at Bridgewater, he predicted a country's currency would tank due to budget deficits. It was a Monday morning, and he stood at a whiteboard animatedly explaining his model. But his analyst, Lee, frowned and raised his hand, saying, "Boss, your model ignores their foreign reserves, which could prop up the currency." Dalio paused, didn't snap, and said, "Okay, show me your data, let's crunch it." That day, the meeting room buzzed with heated debate. Tables were thumped, papers flipped until they found Lee was right. The country's reserves were double what Dalio thought. He pivoted the strategy, dodging a loss. That moment cemented his belief: truth isn't owned by one person, it's the product of collective wisdom. This sparring became Bridgewater's daily rhythm. Anyone could challenge anyone, as long as they brought facts. You can try this in your life too. When tackling a problem, don't rush to conclusions. Talk to a friend or jot down pros and cons. Thinking of buying a car? Don't just trust the shiny ads. Ask, is this car right for me? What's the fuel economy? Maintenance costs? What do owners say? This truth-seeking habit can save you from impulsive choices. A friend of mine nearly jumped ship to a startup for a big paycheck, but after chatting with industry folks, he learned the company's cash flow was shaky and wisely stayed put. Truth can feel like a jagged rock, uncomfortable to hold, but it keeps you grounded. Pain is a signal for growth. Dalio also says pain isn't your foe, it's a signal. He likens life to a marathon. When you're gasping for air, that's when your body's getting stronger. The 1982 collapse crushed him. For days, he holed up in his room, curtains drawn, barely eating. He recalls, "I felt like a punchline, too ashamed to walk tall." But later, he wrote, "That was the greatest gift of my life." The pain forced him to confront his flaws, arrogance, and sloppy reasoning. It taught him humility and the value of rigorous testing. Think about your own life. After a breakup, you might lose sleep, but looking back, didn't it teach you to value the right people? Getting chewed out at work, didn't it push you to learn something new? Dalio's tip: when pain hits, don't run from it, write it down, analyze it. If you bomb a speech because you are nervous, note the triggers, the audience's stares, shaky prep. Next time, rehearse more or practice with friends as your mock crowd. I tried this once after flubbing a meeting. I realized I'd rambled without a clear point, so now I outline my thoughts first, and it's worked wonders. Over time, you'll see pain isn't a burden, it's a signpost to a better you. Chapter 2: Working Principles: Building a High-Performance Machine. If life principles are Dalio's inner compass, his working principles are the engine that turned Bridgewater into a global hedge fund powerhouse. Bridgewater isn't your average firm. It runs like a precision machine, with every person and decision guided by principles. He boils it down to two pillars: radical transparency and meritocracy of ideas. Radical transparency: no place for secrets. At Bridgewater, every meeting is recorded, all data is public, and even employee performance scores are visible in real time. Dalio calls this radical transparency. He believes that only when information flows freely can a team spot and fix problems. Once, a Bridgewater analyst predicted a bond would spike. It was a Friday afternoon, and he stood confidently at a meeting, touting his model: "This bond's going up 10% next week." But Monday's opening bell brought a 5% drop, costing $500,000. Instead of pointing fingers, the team pulled up the meeting recording and dissected his logic. They found he'd overlooked a key factor: interest rate shifts. That debrief lasted 4 hours, with numbers and graphs filling the projector, and everyone saw his mistake, but he wasn't canned. He grew into a team star. Dalio, listening quietly, said, "That's what transparency is for, not to shame, but to find answers." It sounds intense, but the results are undeniable. Bridgewater's error rate dropped from 20% to 5%, and decision quality soared. Dalio says, transparency isn't about embarrassment, it's about progress. He even built a baseball card system, listing each employee's strengths and weaknesses like a player's stats. For example, Sarah might excel at data crunching but struggle with presentations, so the team knows how to divvy up tasks. During one meeting, a rookie fumbled a stat under pressure, and a veteran checked his baseball card, nudging him to double-check, averting a bigger blunder. This might feel extreme for your workplace, but you can dip your toes in. When working on a project, share your thinking and doubts openly, even inviting feedback. It might feel awkward at first, but it builds trust and boosts efficiency. A friend of mine tried this in a small team. When a project lagged, he admitted, "I'm stuck here, any ideas?" The team brainstormed, and they finished ahead of schedule. The trick? See criticism as a gift, not a jab. Meritocracy of ideas. Let the best ideas win. Bridgewater's other cornerstone is meritocracy of ideas. Dalio says decisions shouldn't hinge on rank but on whose ideas hold up under scrutiny. He likens the company to a marketplace of ideas where anyone can pitch but must back it with data and logic. Once, Dalio was keen on investing in an emerging market. Standing in the meeting room, clutching a stack of reports, he said, "This market's got 10% growth potential, let's go in." But his team pushed back. A veteran stood up and said, "Boss, your growth rates off inflation will eat half the gains." Dalio didn't pull rank. He said, "Okay, show me the numbers, let's duke it out." They crunched data all afternoon, and the team was right. The market's inflation was sky high, far riskier than he'd thought. He scrapped the plan, saying, "I lost, but we won." The logic? No one's omniscient. The best decisions come from collective brain power. Dalio even created a believability-weighted system, where past performance gives your opinion more clout. Says an analyst's predictions were 80% accurate. Their input carries extra weight. In one meeting, a rookie pitched a bold tech stock investment. Seniors scoffed, saying, "No profits, too risky." But the rookie brought reams of data, showing the company's tech edge and market potential. Dalio listened, nodded, and greenlit it, earning $30 million. Later, he said, "If I'd only trusted the old guard, we'd have missed that gold mine." You can borrow this approach at work. In meetings, don't rush to decide. Invite more voices, then weigh each idea. Is it sound? Is the evidence solid? Say your team's debating a product's price. Some want it low to grab market share, others high for premium branding. List the trade-offs. Low prices might boost sales but thin margins. High prices fattens profits but shrinks customers. Check data, like surveys showing customers value quality, and go high. I tried this once. My team bickered endlessly, but the data settled it, and the outcome beat expectations. Treat problems as opportunities. Dalio also stresses that problems aren't headaches, they're chances to improve. He compares Bridgewater's process to a machine. Goals are the engine, problems are glitches, and fixing them makes it run smoother. Once, a trading system glitch caused a small loss. It was a Wednesday morning, and the screens flashed red, sending traders into a tizzy. Dalio stayed calm, saying, "Hold up, let's crack it open." The team spent 3 days tracing the issue to an algorithm missing exchange rate swings. They patched it, and profits doubled. At work, you can do the same. When a problem pops up, don't gripe, break it down. If a client hates your proposal, don't deflect. Ask, what do they want? Where did I miss the mark? I once had a client reject a report for being unclear. I realized I'd overloaded it with data, so I switched to charts and 3 key points, and they loved it. Over time, fewer problems meant a smoother machine. Chapter 3: The Evolution and Legacy of Principles. Dalio's principles didn't just transform him, they reshaped Bridgewater and inspired countless others. They grew from one man's reflections into an organization's playbook and a legacy for future generations. How did he pull it off? From one man to an organization. The 1982 collapse sparked Dalio's principles, but at first, they were just his personal notes. He kept them in a notebook, flipping through to stay grounded. As Bridgewater rebuilt, he saw he couldn't do it alone. He needed a team as committed to reality and truth as he was. So, he printed his notebook into a booklet and handed it to employees, saying, "These are my lessons, try them, see if they work." At first, staff were puzzled. Some thought it was the boss's Bible to recite blindly. But Dalio said, "Don't copy it, test it, break it, tell me what's wrong." Once, a trader followed a principle and still lost money. He stormed to Dalio, saying, "Your don't chase highs rule is bunk, the market's climbing." Dalio didn't snap. He sat with him, reviewed the trade, and found the principle needed a tweak, unless backed by a strong trend. He updated it on the spot, adding, "Principles aren't set in stone, they evolve." From then on, Bridgewater's principles became a team effort. Anyone could suggest changes, keeping the good and ditching the bad. This system turned Bridgewater from a scrappy startup into a hedge fund titan. By the 1990s, it managed over $5 billion, growing from a handful of staff to dozens. Dalio said, "Principles kept me alive, but the team made them thrive." He even digitized them, creating a Principles tool app where staff could input issues and get suggestions based on past cases. That system became Bridgewater's brain, guiding them through crises after crises. Passing it on to the next generation. Dalio didn't want Principles confined to Bridgewater. He wanted them to outlive him. He has two sons, both now in finance. He often told them, "I can't give you wealth, but I can give you principles." Once, his eldest asked, "Dad, you keep saying reflect, but I keep screwing up, what do I do?" Dalio grinned, "Mistakes are great, I messed up way more at 30. Just don't repeat them." He handed his son a notebook, saying, "Write down every mistake and one lesson, don't make the same one twice." He also brought principles to education. In the 2010s, he funded programs teaching radical truth and meritocracy of ideas to students. He believed these tools weren't just for finance but for life. One middle school he supported used his 5-step method to help kids solve problems. After a bad test, a teacher didn't scold a struggling student but asked, "What went wrong? Let's figure it out step by step." The kid realized he'd skipped key topics, adjusted his study plan, and aced the next exam. Dalio said, "Principles are my legacy, I want them to outlast me." He wrote Principles not just for Bridgewater but for the world. He hopes every reader finds a spark to light their own path. The living power of principles. Why did principles spread from one man to millions? Because they're not dogma, they're tools. They don't dictate what to do, they teach you how to think. Radical transparency isn't about oversharing, it's about not hiding problems. Meritocracy of ideas isn't reckless brainstorming, it's about backing your case with evidence. These ideas are like seeds, sprouting wherever they're planted. In your life, you can share your hard-won lessons with friends, family, or kids. Say you've learned early to bed, early to rise boosts productivity, pass it on and see if it sticks. If it works, share more. If not, tweak it. Over time, your principles become shared wisdom. Chapter 4. The Secrets of the Economic Machine. Principles isn't just about personal and work life. Dalio also shares his take on the economy. He sees it as a machine with predictable patterns but unpredictable twists. Grasping this machine can sharpen your investing and life choices. The ebbs and flow of debt cycles. Dalio views debt cycles as the economy's heartbeat. He splits them into short-term 5 to 8 years and long-term 50 to 75 years cycles. Short cycles are driven by interest rates and credit. When central banks cut rates, companies borrow to grow, heating the economy. When it overheats, rates rise to cool it. Long cycles stem from debt piling up until it's unpayable, sparking depressions or inflation. His 1982 blunder drove this home. He bet on a debt-driven collapse, missing the government's rate cut rescue. He later studied decades of data, sketching a model: debt rises like a tide, then crashes when it's too high. He turned this into a video, How the Economic Machine Works, explaining it clearly in 30 minutes. Took the 2008 financial crisis, a peak in a long debt cycle. A housing bubble burst, banks collapsed, and the economy shuttered for years. Before that, U.S. home prices skyrocketed, with folks borrowing recklessly and banks lending without checks. When the bubble popped, the debt chain snapped, shaking the globe. Dalio says, "Debt is a double-edged sword, it fuels growth but plants seeds of ruin." This isn't just big picture stuff. Thinking of buying a house? Check the cycle, is it a peak or a valley? In 2008, U.S. prices were insane, and many who borrowed lost their homes when values crashed. Buying in 2010's trough could have scored a bargain. Track rates and price trends, and don't just follow the crowd, it can save you a fortune. Predict less, prepare more. Dalio admits no one can perfectly predict the economy, but principles can help you cope with uncertainty. His tools? Diversification and scenario planning. Diversification means spreading bets, stocks, bonds, gold, not one basket. Scenario planning is gaming out possibilities and prepping plans. Before investing, Bridgewater asks, if markets rise 10%, what's our gain? If they drop 20%, what's our loss? They adjust to survive any outcome. In 2008, Bridgewater used this. They foresaw a downturn but also planned for an upswing. Instead of betting all in on a crash, they hedged with gold and bonds. When the crisis hit, other funds bled out, but Bridgewater gained 10%. Dalio said, "I'm no oracle, I just planned better." You can use this in life. Before a big move, don't just bank on the best case. Prep for the worst. Jumping jobs? Ask, if the new gig flops, what's my backup? A friend of mine saved 6 months' expenses before switching jobs. When the new firm cut staff, he sailed through. Diversified income, a side hustle beats leaning on one paycheck. Riding the big trends. Dalio also flags long-term trends like tech advances and globalization. At Bridgewater, he tracks productivity, how tech cuts costs and boosts efficiency. AI's rise, for instance, speeds up data crunching, so he's leaned into tech investments. In the 2000s, he bet big on China's manufacturing boom, reaping huge returns. You can tap this mindset. Job hunting? Spot rising industries, renewables and tech are surging, while old-school manufacturing fades. A friend of mine ditched mechanical engineering for data analytics and tripled his pay. Catch a trend, and it's like riding a tailwind, half the effort, twice the gain. Chapter 5. Weaving principles into your life. Dalio's principles isn't about mimicking him, it's about crafting your own. He offers a 5-step method: set goals, spot problems, diagnose causes, design solutions, execute improvements. Let's see how it works. The 5-step path, from chaos to clarity. Step 1. Set a goal. Dalio calls it your North Star. Want a promotion? Make it specific, become a manager by next year. Step 2. Identify problems. What's in your way? Maybe weak skills or no time. Step 3. Dig into causes. Don't skim the surface, ask why. Skills lacking because you're not learning? No time because you're distracted? Step 4. Design solutions. List fixes. Take a course, focusing 2 hours daily. Step 5. Execute and tweak. Act and adjust as you go. Try it out. Say you're a student aiming to boost grades. Step 1. Goal top 10 in finals. Step 2. Problem maths dragging you down. Step 3. Causes shaky basics, no practice. Step 4. Solutions. Do 20 problems daily, get tutoring. Step 5. Execute. Start tomorrow, review weekly. A student friend of mine did this, climbing from the bottom to the top 5 in 3 months. Or say you're an entrepreneur eyeing growth. Step 1. Goal: double revenue. Step 2. Problem: few clients. Step 3. Cause: no marketing. Step 4. Solutions: run ads, tap referrals. Step 5. Execute. Call 10 prospects weekly, check results monthly. Tackling tough choices. Life's big decisions: career, home, marriage aren't so tidy. Dalio suggests a principles checklist to break them down. Write your core principles as your yardstick. Say yours are stability first and chasing growth. Job hunting? Ask, is this gig secure? Does it offer a path up? A friend faced 2 offers, a stable but repetitive corporate job versus a risky but exciting startup. His principles were stability, growth, and passion. The corporate job was safe but stagnant. The startup was dicey but full of potential. He picked the startup for growth and passion, and 3 years later, he'd climbed 2 rungs. Dalio says, "Tough choices are like puzzles using principles as your frame, and the picture clears." Craft your own principles. Dalio urges everyone to pen their principles. Start with failures, each mistake, write a lesson in 1 line. Lose a client from per prep, write. Always prepare thoroughly, leave room for error. Over time, these lines become your compass. Grab a sheet of paper and list your last 3 flops, with fixes next to each. Say, missed a reporting deadline, set aside 30 minutes daily to review. I did this after showing up late to a meeting. I wrote, for big stuff, arrive 30 minutes early. I haven't been late since. In a month, you'll have a personal playbook. Small steps, big wins. Dalio warns against overhauling everything at once, starting small. Try radical transparency by chatting openly with family or colleagues for 5 minutes daily, sharing ideas or worries. Once it feels natural, scale up. Or test meritocracy of ideas by holding off on deciding until you've heard 2 extra opinions. Small steps keep the pressure low. Want to be more productive? Start with listing 3 daily tasks, not revamping your whole routine. A colleague of mine did this, sticking to 3 tasks a day, and boosted output by 30% in a month. Keep at it, and you'll transform without noticing. Conclusion: the power of principles is yours. From a Long Island caddy to Bridgewater's helm, Dalio proved one thing: principles aren't born, they're forged. He's no prodigy, just relentless about facing reality, owning mistakes, and finding better ways. This book isn't about cloning his success, it's about sparking your own journey. Today's world is wilder than Dalio's era. AI is reshaping jobs, information floods us like a tidal wave, and the future's a question mark. But principles still work. Worried about AI taking your job? Use the 5-step method. Goal: stay employable. Problem: outdated skills. Cause: not learning. Solution: study coding. Execution: 1 hour daily. Swamped by news? Apply radical truth. Is this story backed by facts? Is the source legit? Bit by bit, principles light up the darkest paths. Dalio's story shows true power isn't what you have, it's what you control. Your mind, your choices, your destiny. Now it's your turn. Grab a pen and write your first principles. Maybe don't fear mistakes, but don't repeat them or hear out others, even when it stings. These tiny lines will one day carry you over mountains. Give it a shot, start your journey today.